Let's recognize the elephant in the living room here. There is clearly, at this point, some funny business going on with this Alexander Usyk Tyson Fury fight. Clearly, they've been negotiating for about 5 months now, and they still haven't got it over the line. When they started the negotiation process, we were hearing from particularly Team Fury, but also all the Fury fans about how quickly this fight would get done because Fury doesn't mess about, and when two fighters really want to face each other, negotiations are very straightforward. But as I say, 5 months on, and there is no fight. And it also shows how dishonest Tyson Fury fans are, and I guess birds of a feather flock together. Since Tyson Fury himself is very dishonest, he attracts dishonest people. So they were all saying that the Usyk fight was already done prior to Tyson Fury facing Derek Chisora. They were acting like that fight signed, sealed, delivered, already in the bag. They're just going to announce it after the Chisora fight. Absolute load of rubbish. I said at the time that the fight wasn't done. Usyk and his team may have agreed terms, but Fury hasn't. And until both sides agree terms and put pen to paper and sign contracts, then you have no fight. As far as I'm concerned, there is no way that these negotiations could drag on for this long unless one side isn't as keen on this fight as the other. Somebody is running down the clock. Somebody is stalling this situation. Now, does it mean that they don't want the fight altogether? I hope not, and that isn't necessarily the case. Tyson Fury did talk about an injury after that Derek Chisora fight, which would need 6 to 8 weeks to heal. Now, some would say, why doesn't he just come out and say that's the reason that the negotiations are being dragged out because of the injury? Well, maybe he thinks it's a bad idea to let Usyk on about how severe the injury is. Obviously, he already let the cat out of the bag after the Chisora fight. Maybe he did that impulsively and wasn't thinking. Maybe he wants to go into the Usyk fight having Usyk believe that he's 100% completely healthy and he doesn't have any chinks in his armor or any issues. So, best case scenario, Tyson Fury has this injury. He needs more time to recuperate and recover from it before going into the Usyk fight. So he's trying to long out the negotiations as much as possible to allow for that. Worst case scenario is he doesn't actually want the fight at all. He instead wants to fight Francis Ngannou, perhaps for more money than he would get fighting Alexander Usyk. At the end of the day, Fury's all about the money. That's what he cares about the most. The majority of fans have already given him the crown as the best heavyweight in the world. So what incentive is there for him to face Alexander Usyk in his next fight if the fans already say he's better than Usyk anyway? You see what I'm saying? This is the danger of giving any fighter, not just Fury, any fighter in any division, that crown before they've actually earned it. Fury has beaten Deontay Wilder a few times. He's beaten Dillian White, Klitschko several years ago. He hasn't beaten Alexander Usyk, but yet everybody's saying he's the best in the division. Usyk can't touch him, so on and so forth. So in that situation, with a fighter who loves a pound note, and there's nothing wrong with that, in Tyson Fury, he's saying, well, I don't need to take this risk fighting Usyk. They already say that I'm better than him anyway. I'd rather fight Ngannou for a king's ransom. And so how do I avoid this Usyk fight without making it look obvious, without just blatantly pulling out? Well, I can run down the clock. I can nitpick the contract. I can make the contract so unappealing to Alexander Usyk that he won't agree to my terms, and eventually, hopefully, he walks away from the table. And I can blame him for not wanting to fight rather than people blaming me. Now, that is, as I say, the worst case scenario. I hope that's not what's going on. Best case scenario, Fury just needs more time to recuperate from his injury, but he doesn't want to make it obvious that he has such a serious injury. Time will tell. I'm praying that we still get an announcement in the next week or so, because you have to remember, the original deadline for this fight was March 4th, I believe, March 3rd or March 4th. Well, that's obviously not going to happen, is it? Then it's been pushed back to April. Will it get pushed back even further than that? I mean, if the fight is going to happen in late April, we need an announcement before the end of this month, surely, right? To allow for the promotion and what have you. So let's just call it what it is right now, people. Let's recognize the elephant in the living room. There is some funny business going on here. Somebody is trying to run down the clock. You look at the situation in Saudi Arabia, why on earth wouldn't Tyson Fury take the money the Saudis were offering him over there? Why wouldn't he do that? Usyk said that, or his team, that he was happy with what he was being offered in Saudi, but yet Fury's not. What's that all about? Are we to really believe that they'd be offering him less money to fight in Saudi than he would get fighting Usyk in the UK? And of course, they can mess around and say, well, if we only give Usyk 30%, then we can get the same or a bit more money than we get fighting Usyk in Saudi Arabia. And I'm not saying it is 30%. I'm just throwing an arbitrary figure out there because we're not privy to the exact splits that they're talking about if the fight takes place in London. But hypothetically speaking, if it was that, obviously Usyk is not going to want to accept 30%, is he? That's an insult. Now, is it possible that it's Team Usyk that are running down the clock and it's them who are nitpicking the contract and stalling for time? Well, yeah, it's possible. But when I look at the track records of both fighters, I think it's far more likely that Tyson Fury would be doing something like that rather than Alexander Usyk. And a lot of people struggle with this idea that Tyson Fury would avoid a fight. I don't know why, because he's avoided numerous fights in the past, and it's not a matter of him being scared. It's a matter of him putting his business hat on and thinking from a business perspective before he thinks from a fighting macho perspective. Because people seem to have this idea in their head that Tyson Fury is this macho gypsy king warrior who will take on any man at any time in any location. That's never been the case with Tyson Fury. That's all Fury hyperbole. Yes, he has taken risks in his career, big risks at certain points, but they were calculated risks. He fought Vladimir Klitschko in Germany because who else was he going to fight? He was 23 or 24 fights in, and if you wanted a title shot, you had to go to Germany just like every other contender just about and fight Klitschko over there. So yeah, he had to take that risk, like David Haye did, like, as I say, most other Klitschko opponents did. He fought Deontay Wilder in the United States. Yes, it's a risk, particularly after coming back, losing all that weight and so on. But he had the option to go the Anthony Joshua route. He had the option to fight Tony Bellew, Dylan White, Anthony Joshua, but he chose not to. So he weighs up risk reward and he says, this route isn't as favorable to me in terms of risk reward as this other route. He's always been doing that. When he was supposed to fight David Price for the British title back in the days, he decided that the risk reward for the Price fight wasn't favorable for him. So he decided to go in a different direction. Bear in mind, around that time, he was going life and death with John McDermott. I know this was a bit after that, but it wasn't too far removed. Going life and death with John McDermott was David Price wiped John McDermott out in one round. So Tyson Fury back then, of course, was nowhere near as good as the Tyson Fury we have today. So I don't see why people think it's outlandish to say that Tyson Fury avoided David Price back then, because that's absolutely what he did. David Price was filling out the Echo Arena. David Price back then had a bigger following in the UK than Tyson Fury did. There was more hype around David Price. So from a commercial standpoint, that would have been lucrative for Fury to take the Price fight at that stage. But he didn't. He thought it was, again, back then when Price was undefeated and knocking everybody out, too big a risk for not high enough reward for his liking. So Fury's always done this kind of thing. I mean, even with Dylan White, he eventually fought and knocked out Dylan White in a very good performance. But a couple of years prior, when Dylan White hadn't been knocked out by Povetkin yet, when he was on this very good run and he was knocking people out, White offered to fight Tyson Fury, and Fury said, I'll do it if the WBC Diamond Belt is on the line. The WBC said, no problem, we can accommodate that. And then Tyson Fury went and fought Tom Schwartz instead. Fury's got a long history of doing this kind of thing. He didn't fight Dylan White until a couple years later when White had been knocked out by Povetkin, and even then, it was a mandatory defense, so Fury had to take it. So Fury is not a straightforward guy to deal with in a business sense. Again, I'm not saying he's scared of anybody. I don't think Fury is scared of anybody, but he's got that business hat on. He's weighing up risk reward. He's thinking, this fight makes me more money than this fight, and the more lucrative fight is less dangerous. So it's a no-brainer. I should take the more lucrative, less dangerous fight. I think that's how Tyson Fury assesses a lot of these situations. Again, I hope that that's not what's going on here with this Alexander Usyk fight. I hope it's maybe injury recovery. Either Fury is stalling the negotiations so he can recover from an injury, or perhaps even Usyk stalling negotiations so he can recover from an injury. I hope that's what it is. That's the best case scenario. But it wouldn't at all shock me if Fury is looking to fight Francis Ngannou instead and doesn't want the Usyk fight next. That would not shock me at all. I'd be the least shocked person in the universe because I know Fury's track record. There is a pattern of behavior with Tyson Fury over a number of years, which you have to take into account in this current situation. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.